And we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live office hours. I'm so thrilled that you are joining us. I'm excited to be doing this with you for a lot of different reasons, and some of which I'll go into right now, and then the rest will present themselves as we go. We've got an amazing guest, a friend, a fellow LinkedIn Learning author on the live stream with me. But first, let me start by giving you a little bit of background and intro on myself. So those of you who don't know me and are joining in, which is awesome, welcome, can understand where I come from, what my context is, and then I will introduce my guest. So first and foremost, let's talk about me. So for those of you who don't know me, I've done a lot of different things related to automation and enterprise and small and medium business transformation over the last 15 years. Some of the things that are relevant to this particular live stream, I am a LinkedIn Learning author. I've got 8 courses on the LinkedIn Learning library. My first course was an intro to robotic process automation that I did way back in 2018. I co-founded and was running a RPA consultancy and boutique firm, and so that gave me, I suppose, some right to have an opinion on that topic. And then most recently, just finished and launched a course called the Startup/SMB, which stands for Small and Medium Business, Guide to Integrating and Managing AI Agents, because AI agents are what everyone is talking about right now, which is obviously very exciting, but also somewhat confusing, and hence the purpose of this office hours. I've also had the privilege of co-authoring 2 different books, one on intelligent automation, which is a broad spectrum of automation technologies, and then the other is a book called All Hands on Tech. And All Hands on Tech is about the democratization of automation and how it's becoming easier and easier for domain experts in enterprises to tap into, leverage, tinker, build, prototype their ideas and turn them into applications and integrations. Before I bring him on, my guest today is a fellow LinkedIn Learning author. His name's Andreas Welsch. He has a really interesting background, which I will let him share with you in a moment. But he is also a author of a book and courses. His 2 courses, and I think he's got another one coming, which he can tell us about, on the LinkedIn Learning Library are about agents and agentics. His first was AI Agents, Preparing Your Organization for Change as a Business Leader. And the most recent one was Agentic AI, Challenges and Opportunities for Leadership, both hugely relevant topics. And he is the author of AI Leadership Handbook. So you can see a theme here. Andreas is all about demystifying AI, speaking to leaders, and helping you understand what to do with this stuff, because again, as noted earlier, it is confusing. So without further ado, Andreas, welcome to this live stream.
Ian, thank you so much for inviting me to join you on your LinkedIn live office hours today. It's awesome being with you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me. So we've known each other for a while. You have been an inspiration to me. You've been an educator to me. You haven't always been a LinkedIn Learning author and influencer phenom. You had day jobs before that. Could you give us a little bit of background on yourself and where you come from?
Sure, absolutely. So, I indeed did have a pretty long corporate career until this point. It's been 23 years at SAP, one of the leaders in the business application space, and roughly the last 10 years in and around the topic of machine learning, robotic process automation, generative AI, and then also agentic AI, helping large organizations understand where and how they can use these capabilities. But as we know, the economy isn't just powered by large organizations. It's the small and medium-sized businesses that keep it running. And so I'm excited to bring these learnings now to many more organizations, also in the medium-sized sector, because we've made so many learnings along the way. Like you graciously pointed out in the AI Leadership Handbook, I wrote those down. What do you need to do to bring AI into your organization? It's not just about technology. I think that's the biggest learning to begin with. But now I help organizations as an advisor, as a consultant, as a coach and trainer on bringing AI to their organization. So super excited to be with you today. You mentioned the courses. Like I said, course number 3 is actually coming out in a few weeks on how can you run your AI projects successfully? What are some of the risks you might run into? Actually, some of the AI agent courses have been translated into Chinese and into Mandarin and also into German. So if you want to listen to my German voice, you can find those on LinkedIn Learning as well.
So, okay, so I've got to know, I would assume, so that's awesome. Thank you. Welcome. And I assume you don't speak Chinese?
I don't speak Chinese yet. I've been trying to learn it. There's some good resources, but like playing the guitar, every couple quarters I pick it up and then something else comes up, unfortunately.
Okay, so they definitely had someone else or an AI do the Chinese dubbing, but you do speak German.
Yeah.
So did you do the German dubbing, or did they have someone else?
Yes, okay. I asked LinkedIn for the opportunity to, be my own self and be my own German voice. Otherwise, it would be a little weird. At least I thought. And so
that's what I was thinking. It would be very strange for them to have like a German version of you when you is you. They got it. So that's outstanding. I wish I had that ability to. Some of my courses, strangely, only I think one of them is in like 7 or 8 different languages, which is very cool. Some of the others just haven't been translated. They deemed them unnecessary to translate. Oh well. But and sorry, when was the third course dropping? Did you say?
Somewhere in the next couple of weeks. I don't have a finite date yet, but I would say somewhere in the next 6 weeks probably is when I expect it.
Cool. Well, that's the for LinkedIn Learning authors, they know the excitement of it kind of just sort of happens sometimes. They're just like, it's going to happen like this day. And then it happens. My most recent course dropped like 3 days early, which, I'm not complaining. It was a nice surprise to wake up and find it alive and in the world. Okay, so let us focus. So we talked about and I looked through your courses. I considered mine as well. You've nailed it. I mean, one of the things that I think we both share is both the experience and the background in this space, but also sort of a pragmatic operational mindset as far as how to actually first understand and then to apply these technologies. Partly because it's more exciting and more interesting, but far more confusing and hectic than, I'll speak for myself, than I've ever seen it in my career as far as an innovation, sort of just clock speed, cycle time. And so we need guides for leadership. We need guides to demystify what it is that is available and what it is that is not hype and is actually applicable in the work that we do today. So with that in mind, we ginned up 6 questions that we'll try to work our way through, and then very, very much would love to get other people to weigh in as well, and we'll take questions from the audience. So as we go, think of your questions. Please contribute them. We'll put them up on the screen when the time is right, so we can give you the attention you deserve. So this is kind of it. We're going to talk about what these things are, and then we'll start to explore how are they different from the things that we all know about and talk about. And then we'll talk about what small and medium businesses need to know to best distill this information, understand how to apply it. And so let us get started. We'll start with the first question. And I'll throw this to you, Andreas. What are AI agents?
Awesome question. So what are AI agents? AI agents are the next evolution in software and how software can automate, can complete tasks that are more complex than simple, if this happens, then do that rules, right? Or more complex than we've seen it at least in the beginnings of process automation. So agents take a goal that a user defines, for example, research information on a certain market, on a certain niche, and they have access to different tools. For example, they can reach out to the web, they can do a web search, they can maybe be connected to your own company's data or database and retrieve information from there. And they can plan, right? Much like we've seen this in generative AI, ChatGPT, Claude, in the prompting strategies. First, I want you to do this, then you do that next, and you come back with the result and the recommendation. So they can take a task and they can break it into smaller subtasks, work on these individually, and come back to you with a recommendation that you as a user can choose to implement or ask the agent to refine.
Outstanding. Thank you. Okay, so that begs our next question, because you kind of can't define one thing without comparing it to the
Yeah.
next or its predecessors. And so, how are these AI agents that you just explained different from a cast of other automation characters we've had at work, including chatbots, robotic process automation, and just other forms of process automation?
So to me, the most simplest form or comparison is, again, what I mentioned. If this happens, then do that. Those are more rule-based systems, like we've had them for decades, right? For 60, 70 years, we've been programming software. If this happens, then do that. Then we started looking at data, things like machine learning, right? If we see a large enough body of data, we can recognize some patterns, we can make some recommendations. People who've bought this hammer have typically also bought this toolbox. People who like Breaking Bad also like Better Call Saul. Is this a cat? Is this a dog? Is this a hammer? Is this a toolbox? Things like that. So
Right.
we've moved from explicit instructions to data and patterns, and now with generative AI, with agentic AI more precisely, we're moving towards goal-oriented systems. I want you to do this. I want you to research information on a certain company, or I want you to find the best strategies, to put this proposal together, to create this marketing strategy, for example.
Right.
And so that's how we're moving along towards more complex systems that can also reason in a way, mimic our thinking and approach to problem solving. And I think it's especially that part of problem solving, to me, captures it pretty well, right? We don't have to define the entire problem and all the steps that you need to go through as a system to do this. We just say, go figure out the best way to do that. Ask me if you have questions. And because these models are so capable, because they can work with language and have seen so many relationships between causality, between objects, between entities, if you will, they can reason, they can deduce what are the best next steps.
Brilliant. Great answer. One of the one of my earlier LinkedIn courses, and I think it was RPA, AI, and Cognitive Tech for Leaders. This was years and years ago, and I've refreshed it recently, but it was meant to demystify all of the different tools in the tool set. It's a great analogy. The complaints often with robotic process automation was that these were dumb robots, right? That they weren't doing the goal seeking, they weren't doing the sort of the flexibility that you just described. And I wouldn't disagree, but I would push back that ultimately these are not dumb; they're just well behaved, in so much as they do exactly what you tell them to do. You teach them to do something. And I would also argue that in the world of work, as you look at what you do in most realms, at least traditionally, it was well behaved work, right? You had procedures defined, you had outputs expected, you had training modules developed so that when that next new person joined the team, you didn't just sort of prompt them and just say, our mission is to onboard a new employee as fast as possible, right? Because that would have them going off and doing various things that might not be that might in fact achieve the goal, but might break other sort of obligations and policies on the way. And so some of the traditional automation, it's fine that it's scripted and structured. Part of the challenge that arose from that, though, is that it made it also brittle, in so much as it would stop working often because its parameters would slightly adjust, or systems would slightly change, or even things like a name would be slightly different, and it didn't know what to make of it. Right, a Dave and a David with the same social security number, the same address, the same everything else, it would break because it was very well behaved, and in some cases, I guess, sort of dumb.
Well, but I would argue, that businesses have defined business processes, so they get the same output every time they run through the process, right? So there is a
Right.
place for technologies like RPA in your technology stack. The question is, what are the tasks that you're going through? Where does a technology like RPA play out its strength? Where are chatbots needed? Where intelligent assistants that are more based on AI needed, and,
Right.
and where do agents play? And I think to your earlier point, there's so much discussion, so much hype in the market that it's easy to conflate all these different terms or mix them up for something much bigger or more capable than these individual pieces are. So to
Right.
me, understanding what are they so you can decide what do I actually need is critically important when everybody starts shouting, I've got an agent. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. We have a question just popped up. Let's take the question a little bit later for a moment because I want to work through this question in a bit more detail. So you had mentioned, and the question actually asked too, how is this different than chatbots? Chatbot is an example that a lot of people are used to working with. How is this stuff different than the traditional chatbot? Because I would argue chatbot is a role that automation played. It would answer questions. It would support customer inquiries or shopping inquiries. They could and will get better as a result of some of the agentic technologies. But how is an agent different than our traditional chatbot?
So I would say traditionally, chatbots, even as far back as just 4 or 5 years before generative AI came on the map, were trained as well, right? You gave them 10, 20, maybe 50 sample sentences of how a user in front of the screen might ask the chatbot, show me
Right.
the invoice. Where is my invoice? What's the invoice? Where do I find it? Right? And then all of them would lead to an intent, right? Pull the invoice, show me the number, what have you, and
Yes.
recognize entities in these sentences or utterances. Now we no longer need to teach chatbots, here are 50 variations of a question that a user can ask you, because the underlying technology, generative AI and large language models, they can process language and understand what is the user actually trying to say. And even if it's in the 51st or 60th way or a variation of how they ask, the model is highly likely to understand still what is the user saying. So we are reducing the need for training up front and giving it so much data up front to understand what does the user actually mean. That
Right.
means the
Yeah.
time to value is a lot faster, and the systems, once you use them, are a lot more robust. Like think back 15, 20 years, the very first chatbots that e-commerce companies would put on their websites, some of them, right, didn't work so well, or you ended up in an infinite loop of, can you say this again, or you need to reach out to an agent, I don't know what you mean, or they even spat out information that was completely wrong. So they are easier to build, easier to use, and they've become more robust.
So you're far more polite than I am. I would say that the earliest iterations of chatbot were garbage and were in fact abusive to everyone who was using them because, as you said, they didn't ever have the logic and ability to take it past even the first question. Often, I would often argue that we were effectively guinea pigging our most valuable resource, which is our customers. And I've spent a lot of my career in the outsourcing and in the call center space. And the joke was effectively that those things, it wasn't a question of if they would fail. It was just a matter of when they would fail. And often it was pretty early on in a discussion. And then the other constraint always was just sort of system dislocation, where even if I got some clarity and I was giving it some information, it was happening in a vacuum. So once inevitably I had to go speak to a human agent, they had no idea who I was. And I was beginning that journey all over again, which is another level of frustration we dumped upon our most valuable resources. And so my hope is that this agentic reasoning and this ability to be more flexible and to use logic is going to make for a much better experience for many people, everyone who interacts with them, who is subjected to them as a frontline in sales and customer support and technical support, et cetera.
Well, I mean, you see that even today, companies that are using chatbots on their websites, but not quite the latest technology yet, you can sometimes see that, right? Here are the 3 options that you can ask for. And so, well, I actually have a different question that's not billing, that's not updating my address, and that's not something else here, right? So
That's right.
Right. That's where you can see some of the limitations of earlier versions of chatbots. Again, they're quite helpful, but they also have a lot of limitations that newer iterations that are based on Gen AI no longer have.
Totally agree.
Not to
Totally
dwell on
agree.
this too long, but I have a great example. I was at a conference at the beginning of March of a vendor for fire safety equipment. And they said, hey, we are rolling out a new chatbot on our website, and
Okay.
we want to make it easier for our customers to ask for product information. What are the latest products? How many do I need? How do I combine them? Where do I find the manuals, and so on? And they've actually worked with the vendor to roll out an AI and Gen AI based chatbot. And I recently caught up with them, and they shared that not only their customers are using it, but also their internal teams and customer support teams are now using it because they can find information a lot more quickly. So some of the positive side effects as well.
That's right. It's the go-to. It's the knowledge management system that they never developed very well internally for themselves. So they're just going out to come in. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you said, more questions. We'll get. We'll cover one or two more. Then I do want to open it up because I'm conscious of the fact that there are people asking questions, and we should listen to them. So the next question. So let's pivot, right? So we talked about agentics and AI agents and where they fit within the spectrum of tools that have been available to us and are becoming available to us. Now let's take a look at the small and medium business. So enterprises have an infinite number of people and resources to dedicate to a lot of the science projects and pilots and proofs of concept. Small and medium businesses don't have that same luxury. And so they need to be really careful with their limited resources on how best to take their first steps into this AI agentic era. So from your perspective, what's the best place to start with AI agents for smaller and medium-sized businesses?
I would say the best place to start is really taking an inventory of the applications you use. There's hardly a vendor that you are currently using that does not have AI. Every vendor, I would claim, has added AI capabilities in the last 2 years, and more of them are now also adding agentic AI. So instead of going out and building something or buying something completely new, I would say look at what vendors you already have in your technology stack. Even if it's the Microsofts, the Salesforce, HubSpot, what have you, and see, have they already made agents available? Now, it's a bit of a tricky question because I'm answering it in the way that I would actually recommend you don't approach it, because a lot of times it starts with that technology. And we're starting to look for a problem by coming out with a technology. We have a new technology. What can we do with it?
Right.
So I would say look at where do you actually have problems in your business? Where are things taking longer than they should? Where do you run into repetitive things? Right? Do you always get the same questions for customer service, customer support? Well, see if the vendor you use, for example, has agents built into their customer service and customer support system. Maybe those agents could help answer the 80% of repetitive and common questions, and free up your customer service person, right? You no longer need to send in an email individually, but if we know that these are the most common answers, again, maybe here's the data of how we've previously answered these tickets and questions. You can automate things like that.
Right.
So combine the two, right? Where are we in our business? Where do we have repetitive tasks, things that take longer than they actually should? And then look at your technology stack and at your applications that you use. Does the vendor have AI? You don't need to build everything from scratch, but use the best there.
Great answers both.
Yes.
I've long in my, I guess, long career, I've been lucky enough to be at the sort of forefront of various different innovation waves. And what's struck me at this old age is that the innovation wave is both exciting because of the technology or the innovation itself, but to me more so because of the lens that it provides us to look at the same old thing in a different way. And so we saw that going way back with the continuous improvement lens, where you started to look at things with sort of a DMAIC Six Sigma sort of framework and started to ask yourself, like, what do we do? How often do we do it? What's the Pareto? Where are the frictions? What are the degrees of accuracy? Then we moved to the process automation space, where we started to look again through a new lens at the same thing we were doing, which was, okay, where are we doing things that are repetitive and routine and rule based and based on system-based information, so that was a candidate. And as you just so well articulated with this AI agent space, it is yet another lens where you could go to the hardware store and just ask for the new shiniest hammer that they have, and then go treat everything like a nail and just smack away at it, which many vendors want you to do with their shiniest hammer. But again, to your point, it's yet again, look at what you do through this even more powerful lens to ask yourself, what is value creating and value destroying within your business, and soul crushing, I suppose. Whereas stuff that your team's doing that you just don't really need to be doing. More and more with the flexibility and the nuance and the goal seeking capabilities of AI agents, it's where can you improve back, middle, and front office processes in new ways, thanks to the new capabilities that are available to us. And it's a great exercise and a necessary one if any company of any size wants to survive and leverage these capabilities.
Absolutely right, and I mean the questions that we both shared that you should ask if you're in a small medium-sized business, they're universal. To your point, right? We asked them with BPO, we asked them with RPA, we asked them with machine learning, with Gen AI, and now with Agentic AI. What are the things that are repetitive? Where are people spending time doing things manually that they really shouldn't? Where a system could do this, and we've always run up to some limitations, right? Where maybe our RPA again was following more the rules in the rule book, but what if something was outside of it? Well, now the idea is, and the vision is, that agents can do that if it's got more variance. So we're gradually increasing that scope of what technology can do, but the questions underlying the deployment or figuring out where should I actually use them, they stay the same, right? And they are business questions, they're not technology questions.
Right. Nope, that's absolutely right. Okay, so I'm going to go to some questions because the best plans fall apart when you meet reality, and there's some really good questions coming in. So I want to go to, hold on one second, because I am going to change this background so it's cleaner. Okay, so there's some great questions that stem from the discussion we just had. One of them comes from a fellow LinkedIn Learning author and friend, Keith. So Keith McCormick asks, based off of your comment, Andreas, there's a lot of these vendors that are now saying, yes, that they now have AI or now have agentic AI. Is there a difference? Is there how do you use your attuned sort of product selection lens to figure out what they're talking about? Or is it all just marketing gibberish?
That's I think that's the $1 million question these days, right? 2 years ago, every vendor said, we are AI first. We have been doing AI for a long time. Some have been doing that and have been doing that. Others, it was more marketing led. And I think we're seeing similar motions now as well, right? There's no vendor basically in the market that cannot afford to say we don't have agentic AI, right? That's the big topic. That's how you drive interest from a vendor point of view. But what that means from a customer or buyer point of view is you should ask your vendor, how does it actually work, right? Is this just the same rules? Is this using generative AI, large language models, and what does it do? Can I give this a goal, or does it have fixed steps? Is it a workflow that it goes through, and maybe at some points it calls an API to read out documents and put it back into a structured process,
right?
Or how open is the system when it comes to defining goals? How well connected is it as well? But I think we are definitely seeing this. Let's slap the agentic AI label on it, because that's how we drive conversations. So
really,
yes,
amazing,
right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you're absolutely right. I mean, to some degree too, it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, ultimately, what is good? Right? What's the outcome you're looking for? And if it's able to deliver that outcome, then it is the right tool for you. If you are just shopping for the latest and greatest, then you've got to ask yourself what's driving your decision and where you get in the budget. And if you have it, great, create an incubation lab in which you incubate and tinker with some of these things. But to your point, there's still, and this is something I've been working on, is I still strongly assert that and we'll get to this in a moment too, but the combination is always going to be the right answer. And it's going to include some of the capabilities that came from the traditional version of automation and process automation, some of this new version, and also some of the greatest resource enterprises still have and will have for as long as I'm alive, I assert, is their people. And the human talent, the human agents that are in the ecosystem are invaluable to incorporate into this selection process as well. I'm going to go to this next question just because it's a perfect setup, and it is one of the questions we had anyway, which is from Boris, and he asks, so how do you measure the AI readiness of a small and medium business before jumping into this AI agent pond? What are the criteria that you and you're guiding leaders all the time now, Andreas? What's that rubric? What's the framework that you tend to work with them to determine, are you in fact ready for this?
Sure. So what I see a lot of times is we want to do AI. We want to do agentic AI. And when you peel it back and when you start asking business questions, you actually see it's a lot more about a business transformation. And in many cases, the infrastructure isn't necessarily where it needs to be, right? The data might not be there, might not be as good as you need it to be to connect to agents, or where we're on an earlier release, or we're maybe still on premise, we're not using cloud software. So those to me are some of the fundamentals, right? Now, then it's about understanding how does our business actually work? What are the processes that we run through, dozens of times a week? And there are tools that help you do that with process mining, process and intelligence, but depending on the size of your company, right? A Visio diagram with a few boxes and decision points might be perfectly fine as well. And that's more than maybe some of your peers might already have. But understanding, right, what are these repeatable steps that we go through is the first step. You can find that out if you talk to people in the business and say, how do you actually do that? How does it work? Does it work well? Does it work well all the time? What happens if this or that change comes in, or so people can give you this information if you do a bit of user research. And again, if you're in a small medium business, you probably know the people by first name or might have lunch with them on a regular basis. Right. So it's not that you need to look through a large address book or at an org chart to figure out who's the process owner for order to cash. Know the person, right? It's Joe. He sits 3 doors down from you, and you can walk over. So how do you then make sure that it's monitored, right? To me, it comes down to aligning your agentic AI and AI features, use cases, whatever you want to call them, to your business strategy, right? And start there. What is it that we're trying to achieve, and how do we know that we're actually achieving it, right? That we're on the right track. So it comes down to key performance indicators, process performance indicators as a different metric to say, how long does it take to send out an invoice? How long does it take us to collect the cash after we've sent the invoice? And then look at ways to say, well, what if we were able to improve this? Again, maybe cash collection instead of 45 days, what if we got that to 40 days? And what would it take us to do that, right? So take a pretty methodical approach to breaking down where are the opportunities.
Yeah. 15 years ago, we would refer to cashable and non-cashable benefits from deploying automation, and I don't think that has decayed one bit. That is still an invaluable way to approach this, just because, as you said, some of the mechanics of what it is that you're deploying, the impact of it emerges in different ways, I suppose, is what I'd say. I've worked with clients where you automate 85% of a process that they had 100% done by people earlier, and they express dissatisfaction that it's only 85%. and you just think, well, okay, so what is good then? Because you were hoping to just turn the lights off and just do this without humans, but the underlying realities are such that the reason that the other 15 is unautomated or unautomatable is just because the systems are completely out of sync, right? It's a data thing, and usually it's a data thing. And so to Boris, to your first question, as far as like AI readiness is about data architecture as well as governance, and just the guidance that you've provided to your teams to understand how to approach this. And then, yeah, Andreas, as you say, as far as how you monitor it, it is what is good. What do you do with what we used to call the hours back to the business? If you do free people up, what do they do with their time that's more valuable? What additional insights are you able to gain now from processes and from the data that courses through your processes? That's something that traditional automation was never really good at. It just got its job done. Again, well behaved, but not very curious. So this new agentic era can be quite a bit more helpful and valuable to enterprises. Great question.
One additional point I want to mention there, readiness, right? We talk so much about processes, data, technology. People readiness is an important one as well, right? And also, to me, that starts with you as a leader. If you're a leader in the business and you say, we want to be an AI first company, we're deploying agents, what do your people think? Well, I'm training these systems, in 3 months, 6 months down the line, I'm out of a job because AI is doing my work and probably better, faster, cheaper than I ever could.
Yep.
So what have you achieved? A lot of angst, anxiety, dissatisfaction, pushback before you've even deployed the first agent, right? So don't forget that, yes, there are people in your business, you still want them there, you still need them there. And it's not just data, technologies, and processes, but most of all, people and their readiness as well.
Right. And I also, firmly believe that, again, the democratization of a lot of these capabilities is enabling more and more of your people to come to the table with ideas and speak in a language that synchronizes with your IT teams more and more. These AI coding tools, just the fact that everyone is prompting ChatGPT or whatever flavor you use to do various things, we're being conditioned and taught how to think creatively about how to address challenges that, as you mentioned, have always been there. Right. Joe, the few offices down, has always been disgruntled by whatever department he oversaw, whether it's like vendor onboarding or shipping and logistics or legal or HR and employee onboarding or accounts payable, receivable, whatever it is. You've got operational domain expertise in your business that has known frictions exist, have really wanted to address them, and in some cases they've just become complacent and just decided, yeah, this is the way we've always done it, and it's going to be the way we continue to do it. But to your point, in managing your people, which comes with both awareness, so that they understand this spectrum and what is now possible, and also understand that they are valuable and they should be vested in this brainstorming, because there absolutely will be a role for them. Right? There is no reality in which these agents are taking over a whole business, nor would you want it to be that way. Frankly, right? Speaking as a customer of businesses, I still like humans.
Fully agree, right?
I think we're still good at some things. The interviewing of the avatar version of Andreas did not seem interesting to me, so I asked for the living, breathing version of you. But next time, if you're busy, maybe I'll speak to you.
Oh,
yeah. No. Okay. We got we're using our time well. Let's see what other questions we got. So this is I think we touched on this a little bit, but let's sort of dig into it a little bit more, because as you said, especially in sort of medium and small businesses, it's not a huge department. It's not a sort of a nameless sort of head of the department who runs a capability. It's folks and they are very, very close to the coal face as far as what needs to get done. So how can those smaller teams use these capabilities?
So to me, that comes down to understanding the tasks, the processes, repeatable steps that you go through in a business on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in that role, what works well, what takes a long time, and what shouldn't be the way that it is. Right? If you know that this shouldn't be the way that it is, that's usually a good starting point to investigate.
Yeah.
How can we do that better? Right? Is that a process change, or is there a technology that can help us do that better, faster, cheaper?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go down that path of technology, then agents can be one technology that can help you solve that, right? So, for example, in my work where I don't consult, where I run my podcast and live stream, I've previously spent 3 to 4 hours after I've recorded an episode to turn the podcast into a newsletter, into a few promotional posts on LinkedIn. And I've been able to automate that with the help of AI and some agents down to 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now,
That's so cool.
right? Doesn't matter that this is now the final product. I would never send it out just blindly.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably still takes me another half hour, 45 minutes to review it and make a few tweaks. But the original content is there. It's a matter of repurposing it and putting it in different formats. I'm not adding additional value.
Yeah.
And it saves me 3 hours, 3.5 hours of time every week. So, right, to me, that is one tangible example. If you're in marketing, if you have a small business, you're in marketing, you run your own podcast, that could be an example of how can I actually do this better, right? I need to summarize this. I need to send out a newsletter. I need to upload it to where I host my podcast. I need to promote this. Perfect, right? So there are many tools, for example, make.com or N88 as a N8N as another example, where with low code or no code, you can move boxes that represent tools, that represent decisions and objects. And there are lots of tutorials on YouTube as well. As interesting as they are, always keep in mind that before you roll this out, before you fully automate something, make sure that there's a person that reviews this and has the final say.
I'm just thrilled you said 1 minute and 20 seconds. That was very specific. I like that. But
actually,
no, you're absolutely
19.
Right. Yeah, 19. Yeah, I'm gonna check back in with you. I want to see the audit. I want to see how long that actually took you. But no, and you're absolutely right. And I mean there's a spectrum. We don't have enough time to cover this. There's a whole other call on the spectrum of technologies that it makes up this new agentic era. But you reference one of them, N8N and tools like it, Make and others. Effectively, what they ask you to do is to have a process in mind, right? So you ultimately know what good is, what you always dreamed you could do upon getting off of a discussion, like a great discussion like this. I want it to turn into all sorts of other assets because some folks are kind enough to give us their valuable time and listen to us for the whole time we speak. But there's lots of really juicy tidbits throughout this. And it would take hours to pick through that and to post process and edit and post. So N8N, for instance, is a tool where you get to turn that sort of your imagination into action and say, wouldn't it be great if? And there's countless processes throughout our lives in both personal and in professional where once taught how to think in that manner, how to distill and atomize processes down and think about the what ifs and what could we do, and to know what the tools enable you to do at this time, given their capabilities, you really can create some pretty amazing efficiencies effectively. And so back to the question of how can small teams use this, those small teams are domain experts. They understand what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. If enabled and trained and supported, they can iterate and brainstorm what they could do given all the powers available to them now, and then put that into effect. But with people as both guidance and guardrail, as you mentioned, just because you don't want to just unleash this on the world.
So to add to that, right, as you're going through this and as you're thinking through it or putting it on physical or digital paper, there's one thing you realize, right? You typically don't start with how can I optimize my outbound lead generation with AI?
Right.
You usually start with, well, it takes a lot of time to find the right people, to send them a message that resonates, and to get a response. And I want to automate parts of this, and I want to measure it. Doesn't have anything to do with technology. The next step is, are there any systems that I already use? And are these vendors using AI? Maybe should I switch systems to a vendor that offers this? Or are there capabilities that I can use on top or around with limited effort? And then you think about, well, how do I want to organize my process? And you will find that there are steps in this process that you don't necessarily need. Right? So are they there because they're truly needed? Are they there because it's a historic background, or just nobody knows why they're there anymore? So it's a good time to revisit that as well. And I think, again, in a small or medium-sized business, you have that much more direct opportunity to make these changes, as opposed to a large business where you have to go through committees and talk to many different people with opinions. So look at, is this the best version of the process, or are there things that I can cut out that maybe I cannot fully automate? But if I leave that out and it's not important anyways, well, guess what? Then I can run through it in a minute and 20 seconds.
Perfect. Nailed it. And that approach, that sort of guidebook you just laid out, is what every company of every size should be running through, and specifically just because of the privilege that medium and small businesses have of just being that much closer to the content, right? That much closer to the context, to the process, to the customer, enables them to cut through a whole bunch of, hopefully, silliness that's informed by sort of vendor pitches that send you off in the wrong direction. And as you said, that first pass has nothing to do with technology and is fully focused on what it is that you want to achieve and what good would be like, and keep that as your North Star, and always have that drive your brainstorms. Amazing. Okay, let's look at the last two questions, see if we want to drain them. I think we've touched on some of them, but we sort of talked about this, and I think we did, because you talked about you could use it for marketing, you could use it for sales. Are there any other details you'd want to add as far as how can SMBs leverage agents for growth?
So I would say for growth, it's not just marketing and sales, but also looking at new markets, at different verticals that you can go into, depending on what you offer. It can also be helping you think through strategies, pricing strategies, as one example. So that's on one hand the gift, but also a little bit of the curse with anything agentic AI, generative AI. It's so broad, right? It's up to you, not just your imagination, but also your understanding of business and of the challenges that you face to say, well, could I do this differently?
Right.
So depending on what that looks like for you in your business, technology obviously can support you, and AI can be a great accelerator to do that.
Totally agree. Yeah, I see it as also a friction story. And the frictions are such that right now, domestically at least, it's hard to find talent, right? There's inflation and there's a talent shortage. And so growth often is predicated on you having the team to enable said growth. And so you've got great folks in your organization who know the subject matter, understand the strategy, and understand the customers that you have and that you would like to have. And so enabling them, augmenting them to just be more of themselves is a great way to support growth. And then again, back to friction, just every step of the process of finding, informing, interesting prospects, and then bringing them on board. New customer onboarding or site setup, and just all of the mechanics of that often just add time delay and almost always pain. Those can be handled in a different way, so that from day one it's delightful, which is a cheesy word, but you make the experience with you just better. And so in so doing, you enable more of that, and customers that choose to work with you more, hence growth. So it's anyway, friction.
I love that.
Fight the friction. Okay. Last one. I think this is the last question, and I think it's a good one, which is ultimately in this. Okay. So we get two more. So we'll leave this one up. So, are human agents no longer relevant in an agentic future? Is certainly something that is, it's an apocalyptic view, and it's a scary one, and I think it does concern folks, and perhaps causes some resistance in enterprises as far as adoption. What are your thoughts on the fate of humanity, Andreas?
We've seen similar questions and human concerns whenever we've discussed new technology, right? We've seen this 10 years back with RPA. Is it going to change, or not just change, but replace jobs and people who are doing this work today? Well, you could argue that logging into your vendor invoice portal to download an invoice, to extract information, to put it into your ERP system is not necessarily something why you got your CPA or why you went to college to get your degree in finance. Right. But understanding what are the different parameters, how is business running, are we doing well, what are some levers that we can pull? That is your core, unique and human expertise, and collaborating with others, obviously. So then came machine learning. We said, well, here's the next level of slightly more complex tasks. Patterns, matching payments to invoices, what have you. Well, am I now going to be out of a job? Well, it's another task, again, that probably you as a human shouldn't have been doing to begin with. Now technology is capable to do that. So let's give it to technology, and again, you can focus on those next level tasks where we need your human intelligence, creativity, communication, and so on. And in the same line, I see generative AI, I see agentic AI as well, that there are tasks that we can now finally give to software, and that we can finally give to technology to help us do that, because we haven't been enjoying them to begin with, and they're not necessarily something where we need our creativity and our human intelligence.
Yes.
Or empathy, right? Let's talk about that. You said, when I do business with a company, when I'm a customer, I still want to talk to a person, right? Whether it's your returns, whether it's a complaint, a question, changing your cable bill, what have you. It's always nice to have a person that you can actually talk to, right? There are the skills, I would say, in a business as well. So roles are going to change. Yes, they always have, but it's a matter of understanding and learning where are these opportunities for me individually. How can I use this technology to the best way possible? And together, I think there was one of the questions in the chat. That's the biggest opportunity, using AI as a co-pilot, using it as an accelerator, as an assistant, and as many assistants that you might eventually have that help you do your job even better.
Well put. Yeah, I think the concern that AI is going to remove all human labor, and therefore the purpose of humans, is it's a statement on your belief in the creativity and ingenuity of humans. In so much as a lot of the work that's done today, as you said, is done because it has to be, because we didn't have another mechanism to get it done, and so we've taken it on for the time being. But there's a lot out there that we don't yet do because we're so bogged down by the mundane and the routine. And I think that's where you're going to see, especially, and this is where I think small, medium businesses stand to benefit the most, is this is a leapfrog moment on many fronts, as far as the larger incumbent sort of traditional enterprises against whom they likely compete are constrained by legacy and structured sort of calcified thinking, I suppose, and systems, and all of the processes that make them work the way they do. If you were able to totally disrupt that and rethink it, and throw your people at different, more valuable things, you will win the day every single time. And so small, medium businesses, because this is so much more affordable too. This isn't an ERP implementation that used to cost hundreds of millions and take armies of consultants. You can iterate far more quickly. And so this is kind of a renaissance period, I think, for those with domain expertise, creativity, and ingenuity, and a real customer focus.
Yeah, and maybe to give another example that has nothing to do with AI, our local or company that does the trash removal. 2 years ago, they still had a driver and two people at the back of the truck moving the trash cans. About a year ago or so, they added new trucks that have a grabber arm that drive by the road. They stop, they take the can, empty it, and they move on to the next one. It takes one person, one driver to operate the truck. Right? So there are different ways to look at this. On one hand, it will allow the trash removal company to expand and service many more developments in streets, in towns, in the area, by making that an investment in this newer technology, which means that they could redeploy people that were on the back of the truck if they have a license, right, to drive the truck. And I would assume it's probably more enjoyable to sit in the front than be out in the cold and hot and wet. So take that as an analogy, maybe also to other roles in your business as well. Got nothing to do with AI, but the same concept of what happens with my job, how does it evolve, applies there as well.
Right. Now, and again, that same lens through which you look at everything to ask yourself what's good and what's the impact we're going for, and how does any technology of any kind enable us to activate that and get there. Awesome. We have used an hour has gone quickly, and we have used it well. It has been such a joy to talk with you, Andreas, and congrats on all of your success on the book, on the newsletter, on the minute and 20 seconds it takes you to turn your interviews into content thereafter. I would say to everybody who's listening, please do make a point of following both of us on LinkedIn. Definitely follow Andreas. He's got some really great content and has done such a good job. And I'm not at all jealous or annoyed at how good his stuff looks, or how frequently he can put out really great quality. I don't hold that against him at all.
Well, you learn from the best.
Oh, stop. Who's the best? Maybe I can learn from him too. But no, thank you everybody who joined us. If you do have other questions, and there were great ones that rolled in, hopefully we covered a lot of them, as far as, what is the tech, what's its capabilities, how does it all work together, what's the role of humans. Many of the questions touched on that, and we covered a lot of that ground. But if you do want to get in touch with us afterwards, you know how to find us. We are absolutely on LinkedIn. And if there's any value in this, we could do other. I'm do an assumptive close here and see if Andreas wants to join me for future LinkedIn Learning office hours, because I had fun. Cool. Thumbs up. Everyone sees that. It is official.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Outstanding. Any last words, Andreas?
Last words. So although we've been talking a lot about agentic AI and technology and where things are and where your vendors tell you they are, it's not always just data, technology, and processes. Keep people in the center of what you are doing. Be mindful of your leadership and how you communicate and what you communicate, because at the end of the day, people are still your most valuable resource in your business. So it's a matter of bringing technology like AI and people together and help them use the best of what they can offer.
Outstanding. I will add to your last words by adding my own last words, I suppose. But you're hearing a lot in the AI agent space about multi-agent solutions and multi-agentic solutions, which is tapping into different AI agent technologies. I'm of the belief that a multi-agentic strategy is tapping into human agents and AI agents, to the point that you just made. That hybrid, that fusion of capabilities is always going to be the winning combination, just because there are always going to be elements of a process that call on humans to be in that loop, both either because of our creativity and ingenuity, or because of just the regulatory and just sort of requirement elements of particular industries, to just the element of experience that a human will bring to certain steps that you will want humans in processes. And this allows you to design ones that truly emphasize how amazing we are as elements to all processes. So do not forget the human in the loop in your multi-agentic strategy, whatever size business you are in and whatever process you turn your attention to. So, yeah, with that, thank you everybody for joining us. Do follow us on LinkedIn again. Go check out Andreas's courses. Check out mine if you're so inclined, and stay in touch. Thanks again, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Take care.